Hey everyone, how's it going, and welcome back to my channel. As you know, my name's Alive, and I'd like to apologize for being away for a little bit. I was going through some stuff in real life, and some of you might know what that is, some of you might not know what that is, but regardless, there is something I'd like to talk about, and that's this amazing information that came out just a couple days ago by Blizzard, and thank God they're listening to us. It really makes me happy to know that the company's actually really wanting to make the players happy. Anyways, let's look at the phases that they started to release the other day and compare it to the phases that they wanted to do back at BlizzCon 2018. First of all is Phase 1, Molten Core, Onyxia, and Moradin. This is great. I'm just going to say flat out that this is great. A lot of streamers and YouTubers and other people have said, oh, Vanilla WoW is going to be a steamroll. We're all just going to log in, clear everything the first day, no big deal, it's not going to be a problem. And having the phases go this way is going to make the game just a little bit more difficult. The fact that we're not going to have Dire Maul, Azuragos, Kha'Zix, and all those things in right away is going to make the average player feel a lot more weak. You're not going to have incredibly good gear without those dungeons and bosses being out. Your character's pre-bis is going to have very low hit rating, very low crit rating. You're going to feel generally very weak, which is good, because that means it's going to take people longer to actually clear the raids, get the raids on farm, and so on. Also, if Dire Maul is not out right away, that means that there's less world buffs that people can attain to make the raids easier. Which I personally like raiding with world buffs, but that's a topic for another video. But going into Phase 2, what they'd like to implement is Dire Maul, Azuragos, and Kha'Zix. Now, before we start talking about Dire Maul, I'd like to talk about Azuragos and Kha'Zix not coming into the game at the very start of the game. In my opinion, this is a massive change. This is a massive positive change. And I'll tell you why. There would have been a problem, 100%, if Azuragos and Kha'Zix were going to be up at the start of the server launch. And the problem would have been that all the top guilds, one on each server or two on each server, they're going to level up a little bit faster than everyone else on the server. They're going to get to the world bosses a little bit faster than everyone else on the server. And Azuragos is really not that hard to kill. Not to mention it's a world boss, which means you can bring 40, 80, 10,000 people. And you'll eventually kill it, even if you are lower level than 60. In these top guilds, what they would have done is they would have gotten to level 55 or whatever the minimum level requirement that they felt necessary would have been to kill these world bosses, and they would have killed them when everyone else is level 40 on the server or whatever level they may be. Not only does this mean that they get the first world boss kill, but this also means that they get the spawn window on lockdown. They know exactly between what time and what time the next spawn is going to be, so that they can lock down the area ahead of time. Also, they would have been getting incredible gear ahead of time. And while not all gear off of Azuragos and Kha'Zix is really good gear, some of it's crap, but some of it is really amazing gear. And if they were to get these kills earlier on, not only could they lock down the world boss timer, but they'd also be going up in gear levels as a guild faster than everyone else, meaning if those guilds wanted to contest them, it'd be harder and harder to fight them because they're gearing up at a faster rate than you're gearing up. And I think this is a good thing that world bosses are coming into the game later, because that allows people to engage in world bosses the way they should. It allows people to go there, mass scale PvP, 100 Horde versus 100 Alliance, and really battle it out for these world bosses. Have 7, 8, 9 hour battles to get these world bosses. And that's how the game should be. It should not have a bunch of level 55 people rushing to max level, killing it right away. That is a negative player experience in my opinion, and I am extremely glad that they changed it to this sort of phasing. Okay, so now that we got world bosses out of the way, let's talk about Dire Maul. So I mentioned earlier that Dire Maul has a bit better gear, but realistically, it has pre-best-in-slot items or best-in-slot items for every single class. Doesn't matter what class you play, you will be needing to go to either Dire Maul West, East, North, Tribute Run for something. And some classes have more items in Dire Maul than other classes, but regardless, Dire Maul has very, very powerful items. And this kind of takes me back to the whole feeling weak type thing. I think it's important for people to play Classic WoW and really feel their character grow from a weak level 60 that has greens on and barely any mana or barely any crit, and really feel their character slowly get stronger and stronger, instead of the whole Battle for Azeroth kind of power spike where you reach the max level and then you instantly get a bunch of gear and you feel really strong. Vanilla World of Warcraft is all about slow linear growth, and I think doing it in this way, not having Dire Maul out at the very beginning, is the proper way of doing things. Not to mention that Dire Maul also brings 3 more incredible world buffs with 2% spell crit, 200 attack power for melee, and 15% stamina for your whole raid, which is massive. Next, let's talk about Phase 3. Phase 3 has a little bit less information in it. It's a pretty basic phase, just including Blackwing Lair, Darkmoon Faire, and the Darkmoon Faire decks. And also noted here is PvP, but that hasn't been announced yet. But personally, I think that PvP items, battleground reputation items, should be starting to be implemented at this time, if not in Phase 2. At least for the earlier PvP sets, the level 58 blue sets, and so on, so we can get a little bit of gear to play around with. But anyways, in Phase 3, Blackwing Lair, Darkmoon Faire comes out. There's not too much to mention about this, since Darkmoon Faire typically does come out around Blackwing Lair, and this is the proper way of doing things, in my opinion. Blizzard's doing a really good job listening to the community here. Blackwing Lair has quite a bit of incredible gear with all their trinkets, Netherian's Tear, Drakefang Talisman. I'm sure you guys know all about it. And the Darkmoon Faire decks are also, some are not that great, but some are pretty important, like the Darkmoon Faire Blue Dragon deck for priests who get a lot of spirit can be very good. And the Darkmoon Faire World buff, allowing you to get 10% more damage, intellect, or whatever you may want to roll. With ending Phase 3, I'd like to compare how things were going to be with the BlizzCon 2018 setup. In BlizzCon 2018, they wanted to release Blackwing Lair and Zul'Gurub at the same time. And I don't think this is a good idea, and I'm glad that they changed it. Again, because I want people to feel how weak their character is. I want as few catch-up mechanics as possible. That way you can really feel the progression of your character, rather than just jumping up in power right away. Zul'Gurub has a ton of different powerful things that come along with it, including recipes off of a reputation vendor for new potions, new craftable sets, and so on. Class enchants for the different classes that are going to be best in slot forever, and a ton of really good gear that drops in Zul'Gurub that is oftentimes better than the Blackwing Lair gear. And it would really give a boost to people's overall strength level, and I think it's good that they split it up and have it separate, the way it should be. Going past Zul'Gurub, though, in Phase 4, is also when Green Dragons are now going to be launched, which is also the proper way of doing things, which I'm really glad to say. Blizzard's really doing a good job here. I know I've said it already, but, you know, we got to give them credit when credit's due. So they recognized that you can't release Emerald Dragons at the same time as the War Effort, AQ, and so on, or else you won't have much time to even kill the World Dragons for the Nature Resistance pieces before you're ready to go into AQ. And that's a little bit of a problem. I would like to note, though, while the Emerald Dragons do have Nature Resistance pieces and other strong items, they're not absolutely necessary to kill to go into Encourage successfully. However, being able to kill these Emerald Dragons will give you a significant boost towards your success in Encourage. There are other powerful pieces that are off the Emerald Dragons that are not Nature Resistance pieces, such as Hibernation Crystal, Mind Tier Band, and so on. All of these items are going to make Encourage slightly easier for those who can kill the Emerald Dragons ahead of time. Moving past Phase 4 though, Phase 5. Phase 5 is the war effort, getting ready for the gates to open, collecting a bunch of materials, server-wide, collecting badges and reputations so you can get your Rock Fury bracers or your Earth Strike or whatever it may be. The war effort is an incredibly important patch because that starts to introduce people towards what they will need to do in Encourage and really starts to bring people into Silithus where they normally would not be. I think the most important thing though is the tier 0.5 sets. The tier 0.5 sets coming in Phase 5 is a huge sigh of relief to me. The tier 0.5 sets means that the whole dungeon loot in all of the dungeons are going to get revamped. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of people mention this before. This is where Spellweaver's Turban comes in, Diana's Pearl Necklace, and a bunch of incredibly strong items that would otherwise make the game really, really easy if they came in ahead of time. And I know for me personally and a few of my guild members, we were really, really worried that Blizzard were going to put these improved dungeon loot items in the game from the start. And it's a big relief that they're not doing that, because these items will completely trivialize a lot of the really important stepping stones that you should normally obtain along the way. And most notably is one of the items that Blizzard mentions in their post, Titanic Leggings. In patch 1.10, when dungeon loot is improved, 0.5 dungeon sets are included, this becomes a world drop. And Titanic Leggings are basically the best legs warriors can use, I think, up until Naxxramas. I'd have to double check. But if they allowed that to be in the game from the very start, that would be a massive mistake. Allowing people to get pieces of gear that they're going to have for 95% of the game at the very beginning is a big mistake. And let's not to mention that warriors already have Lionheart helmet. Anyways, I'm really glad that they're doing this and really bringing back the power level of people, only putting catch-up mechanics in the game where they should be. And this ends the video with Phase 6. Phase 6 is the smaller phase. It just has Scourge Invasion and Naxxramas, the very end game. And Scourge Invasion has quite a bit of lore and some fun little mini events that you can do for some nifty items. But the real patch here is bringing Naxxramas into the game. Naxxramas is pretty much the main reason I came back to Vanilla WoW, and I'm sure a lot of other people want to come back to Vanilla WoW, is to finally be able to say that I killed Naxx 40-man. I went into 40-man Naxx, I got full tier 3, my guild has a Teish, and I killed KT. Once you can say you've done that, then you can say that you truly beat Vanilla. You completed Vanilla as a game. Anyways, guys, those are some of my thoughts about the patch progression system that just came out. And I might have forgotten a few things, and if you feel differently about what I said, please feel free to comment in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the new system, if you agree or disagree with me, or you think that they didn't do anything right or they missed something. I'd like to know. And other than that, always remember, guys, we're keeping the classic WoW hype alive!